Zach Levine has one of his best fourth quarters of this season and maybe one of the best in his career as it helps the Chicago Bulls seal a win over the Detroit Pistons. The Chicago Bulls team needed a win dramatically. We're going to talk about it all and more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central and Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. And talking about running your game, the Chicago Bulls ran their game today when they took on the Detroit Pistons. This was a win that the Bulls needed. And I know it's still early in the season, and acting like a win is a dramatic win or a hugely needed win. I'm sorry, it may seem like an exaggeration, but it was needed by the Chicago Bulls team. We'll get into Zach Levine's fourth quarter, which was a masterpiece of a fourth quarter by Zach Levine, and maybe one that, of course, yeah, you know, people are talking about Zach Levine's trade value. We'll talk a little bit about that as well as we do every time Zach or Vooch plays well. It seems like it's, at this point, academic. You got to talk about their trade value. But this was a game where Nikola Vucevic did so much of the heavy lifting for the Chicago Bulls early. When you look at the first half of this game and what Nikola Vucevic did, he had 17 points in the first half of this game, going 7 of 10 from the field, 3 of 4 from three-point range. He had 3 rebounds, 2 assists in this game, 1 block shot as well in the first half of this game. And it really came down to him and Kobe keeping the Bulls in this game. 17 points from Nikola Vucevic in the second half, 13 points from KCoby White in the first half of this game as well. And of course, they're not the only ones. Jalen Smith had 8 points. He scored all his 8 points in this game in the first half of this game as well. You had 7 points from Ayo Dosunmu in the first half of this game. I think he ends up with like 9 or 10 points overall in this game. So, you know, a lot of players did their heavy lifting overall in the first half of this game. Zach Levine helped sealed it, but there are other players that help get you there. And Vooch has just been such a steady hand for the Chicago Bulls team so far this season. And I think that it's not to say that it's gone unnoticed. I actually think that for once, Vooch is getting a lot of the praise that he actually deserves in how he's helping this team this season. And it's really good to see that from Vooch, a player that I think a lot of times Vooch has kind of gone, you know, he's been the blame that a lot of players have given the Bulls. A lot of fans have given the Chicago Bulls when they want to zero in on just one player to blame. It's been Vooch over like the last 2 or 3 years. It started off being Patrick Williams this season. Then he started playing a little bit better. It may start off being back Patrick Williams. Right now it's Josh Giddey. But for Vooch to be playing the way that he's playing, having probably the best year of his career with the Chicago Bulls, 20 points per game. He's 30th in the NBA in scoring. He 9.7 rebounds. That's going to get up some. It's dropped down because of the last few games, but he's shooting 59% from the field and 44% from three-point range, and he's taking 4 of the mugs a game. Vooch is balling right now, and he's just been that consistent hand for the Bulls, and you need a player like that, right? You need a player that you're going to be able to rely on that's not going to be up and down. And, you know, Zach has had a couple of bad games. Kobe, we know, is still a very inconsistent scorer at some points in time. Vooch has been probably the most consistent Bull, and you got to give him a big, it's the dollar sign. I can't change it now. I'll change it after the fact. Can I change it now? Listen, typos are part of the game. It is what it is. But, you know, Vooch has just been so good for the Chicago Bulls. And I want to spend some time. I don't care what any other outlet, I don't care what any other person's doing when it comes down to it. What Nikola Vucevic has done for this team so far has been really good. But the Bulls got back to being intentional with their offense, right? They were lucky today. And it happens with the Chicago Bulls team. 23 of 46, 50% from three-point range. When the Bulls are making their three-pointers, they're automatically going to be in some games. That's just the nature of how this Bulls team plays, right? It just comes down to it. It's just the nature of how this Bulls team plays. And so when you have that, they shot 48 overall percent from the game, but also the Bulls limited the turnovers in this game. 10 turnovers in this game for a team averaging almost 20 turnovers in this game. So that's some things that are really working out. We also got 5 block shots in this game as well, 28 assists on 48 made baskets. Most of those assists coming in the first half of this game because it was really Zach Levine heavy in the fourth quarter of this game. But the Bulls are just, they're balling right now. They're balling right now. Yamin says, why trade Levine? Bulls need to trade Lonzo Ball. So we got to stop. Okay, let me ask. I'm going to answer this question with this. We got to stop thinking that you can only trade bad players or injured players. That's not how this works. You want to, like, if you're going to trade anybody, you want to trade players while their value is the highest. What do you think the Bulls are going to get by trading Lonzo Ball right now? A ham sandwich and a thank you. That's what the Bulls will get. If the Bulls do look to move Zach Levine, it's because of what he can net back. That's why. You don't just trade players that are hurt or bad. What I don't get where fans get off on that. Like, oh, let's trade Chris Duarte. Okay, cool. So what are you getting for the 4 shoe? What are you going to do with the 4 shoestrings you're going to get for Chris Duarte? Right? But anyway, the Bulls right now, the Bulls in this game, especially after losing last game by almost 40 points, needed a win like this. And it still sucks, yes, that the Bulls, they have more wins on the road than at home right now. And I feel for the fans in the United Center at home in Chicago that have not gotten to see their team win for real yet. But you needed a moral victory like this with the victory. You need that, right? And so that's what it comes down to. And it ultimately is just about, and see, here goes another thing. This isn't 2K. When you trade a player, it's not just to get something better back. There's a lot of things that go into a trade and where your franchise is, then looking at it through the analog of, are we getting somebody back better or not? Unfortunately, where this team is, the cap space is needed. This team's ceiling isn't high, so young talent and draft picks are a big thing of that as well. Like, what the simplified view on what is a trade is supposed to do or not is really taken away from the complexities of it, right? You know what? When the OKC Thunder traded for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you know what? They didn't think they were getting a better player. They didn't think they were getting a better player. They just didn't. It's just, y'all are just, some of y'all are just slow. And it just is what it is. I love you guys to death, though. But to get back on this win, KCoby White as well in this game, 9 of 14 in this game, 5 of 10 from three-point range, 25 points. Really good to see KCoby White get in rhythm in this one again, right? Really important when it comes down to it. And the Bulls, for once, responded in a way that when you look at how bad last game was, you needed a game where you come out and show some edge. And the Bulls showed some edge in this game. That's just what they did. They showed edge in this game. They showed grit, and it felt like they wanted it. This was a team in the last game that did not feel like they wanted to win. They didn't feel like they could deal with the energy of some of these other teams. This felt like a team that really wanted to get the dub tonight. And they got it done. And you got to give some credit to Billy Donovan as well. I'm not somebody who praises Billy Donovan a lot, but Billy Donovan legitimately just coached a solid game. Here's the thing. Sometimes with Billy Donovan, you got to judge him by how much did he get in the way. Billy Donovan did not get in the way tonight. His coaching did not get in the way. I know some people ask, well, why did we sit Vooch when he was rocking and rolling? You sit players so they can get rest, so they can have legs later on in the game, right? Great point here from Happy Hermit. Some teams are just bad matchups for the Bulls. And there's a lot of teams that are going to have some bad matchups. And I always say, like, the Bulls offense is button mashing. Like, they're just out there running and trying to jack up shots. And when the shots go in, the offense is going to start flowing, right? When the Bulls are hitting three-point shots, it completely changes how teams have to guard them. That's when you can catch a Julian Phillips slashing, right? That's when you can open up the floor and somebody can attack the rim and players like Jalen Smith can get easy buckets, right? That's what it comes down to. And that's just what we'll see when it comes down to it. No loyalty again. I don't want Zach to be traded. And as trash as the Bulls already are, why will I want someone worse as a project for our staff to deal with? Well, the unfortunate part of it, what you want doesn't matter. And that's all of us as Bulls fans, right? That's not just coming at you. What you want doesn't matter. What the goal of this front office is, that's what matters to this front office. And us as fans, we get to worry about just the now. The front office can't look at it as just the now. And unfortunately, yes, Zach is good, But this Bulls team is not a team that's going anywhere. And so because of that, you actually hurt your franchise worse by trying to hold on to something that's not going anywhere. They did it with DeMar. They did it with AC. They did it with Andre Drummond. And unfortunately, and it's not Zach Levine's fault, right? This isn't one of those things where it's a bash Zach Levine. That's not it. What's happening here. The front office couldn't get it done in the time frame where it made sense. And if they do decide to move on from Zach Levine, it's a failure by this front office. Make no mistake about it. But they're trying to lessen the impact of that failure by resetting the deck. And sometimes franchises just have to reset the deck. Now, that opens up a whole new can of worms of things that they have to get right in the future. But that may be what they're going to be. Maybe. And we'll see what happens there. But next up, we're going to talk about Zach Levine's fourth quarter, because I think that Zach Levine and his play, it really deserves to be talked about on its own. But before we get into that, we are going to get into a message from one of our sponsors, and that is Prize Picks. All right, y'all. We want to always thank Prize Picks, man, for just supporting the channel and Locked On Networks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money on sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less than on at least 2 players and for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with just as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get in on the actions on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players get injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. Sign up today to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead up to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Think Steph Curry will get more than 4 3-pointers next week? Anthony Edwards more than 27 points? Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this basketball season when you and your crew run your game on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's $50 instantly after you play your first lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, Bulls fans. Zach Levine's fourth quarter, y'all. Like, I'd have to look it up. I didn't have time before the start of this post-game show. But Zach Levine's fourth quarter today was something to watch. Zach Levine is such a player, a special player. He just is. He just is. When Zach Levine is in his rhythm, he's just such a special player to watch, and he's always been that way. He's literally always been that way. Zach Levine has been a player that when he gets in his rhythm, you watch him play basketball, and it just looks flawless. In the fourth quarter of this game, Zach Levine went 6 for 8 from the field, all of those being 3-pointers for 75% shooting, 18 points scored in the fourth quarter of this game by Zach Levine. You literally needed this. You needed this performance from Zach Levine. Zach Levine was coming off 2 fairly cold games recently, right? And while this season has been really good for Zach Levine, and here's what I want to say as well, right? I know we're talking about the scoring of Zach Levine in the fourth quarter of this game, but you cannot just make it about scoring. Zach Levine was so important in the totality of this game. Defensively, this is literally the most locked in consistently I have ever seen Zach Levine in my life on both sides of the ball. He's not backing down at all defensively. Zach Levine is locked in. We've always talked about Zach Levine, and when he's had those moments where he wants that defensive assignment, right? It probably happened maybe 2 or 3 times a year before now, right? Where there's just some games where Zach Levine just gets into some type of rhythm. And that ultimately, like I'm talking about defensively, and it's like he just wants the best assignment. We've seen Zach Levine so far this season want to guard Donovan Mitchell, held Donovan Mitchell to 3 of 11 shooting, right? He held Donovan Mitchell to 3 to 11 shooting. He wanted the Jalen Brunson assignment when Jalen Brunson was cooking. Billy Donovan went to Patrick Williams, and that we still end up winning that game. So when you get a Zach Levine that was collectively 8 for 27 in the last 2 games, he finishes 9 of 19, which isn't terrible, but it's not great, right? It's still 47%. But Zach Levine's month of November so far has been something to watch. 50% from the field, 37% from three-point range. That's taken down by those 2 cold games. 5 assists, 4 rebounds, 1 steal, right under a block per game. And he's only been turning over the ball 2 times per game, which is pretty low for Zach Levine. Zach Levine is cooking right now. And you just can't take that away from Zach. And I know a lot of people are naturally going to have the conversation on what does this mean for Zach Levine's trade value? And I said this over on Central. I'm just going to say it again here. It doesn't hurt, right? That's up to what this front office wants to do, but it doesn't hurt. This is not the year that you can say that Zach Levine's play is what could hurt his trade value if the Chicago Bulls are looking to move on from him. It doesn't hurt his trade value. Now, the contract is the contract. The injury history is the injury history. And it was just such a great game played by Zach Levine. I'm sorry, MC Season, you're wrong. Because even in the first half, when Zach Levine was not scoring well at all, he was locked in defensively. Zach Levine in the first half of this game had a defensive rating of 98. 98. The league average is 110. Keep in mind, the lower number's better. Zach Levine did not have a horrible game. I'm sorry. That's just not by any stretch of the imagination factual. Now, if you want to make the case for his offense being bad in the first half, he was 2 for 8. But it's not just about offense. He facilitated on 5 assists, no turnovers on those 5 assists, 3 rebounds, 1 steal, and a 98 defensive rating in the first half of this game. There's no way that that's a horrible game. It's just not a horrible game. Now, he had a bad first half shooting, which he more than made up for. But when you put everything together, the defense that he played in the first half of this game. MC said, I'm trying to have a page out of Shay's book. That's hilarious. The defense that he had in the first game paired with how hot he got. I'll say this. I don't know if the Bulls, despite how good they played, I don't know if the Bulls win this game if it's not for Zach Levine in the fourth quarter of this game. I just don't know if they do it. I don't know if they do it. And it's really good to see this level of performance from Zach because all Zach had been through this offseason is people completely tearing down Zach Levine. It's been an offseason of tearing down who and what Zach Levine is. I'm glad that this time, Zach Levine, 20-point second half from Zach Levine. 20-point second half. We needed every bit of that. So whether if Zach Levine's future ends up with him being on the Bulls or not, that doesn't matter for right now. What matters is that Zach Levine is giving effort on both sides of the ball. He's doing it consistently. He's performing extremely well. He's stepping up in the clutch for the Bulls as well. And he's fitting in, right? Zach Levine basically played a role player's role in the first half of this game, and he did it extremely well. That's what you want to see from him. That's what you want to see from him, is that level of performance from Zach Levine. And I tell you what, I don't know if he'll make the All-Star team this year or not, but Zach Levine is having an All-Star type impact for this Bulls team. He's really doing it. The person who sucked this game was Tim Hardaway Jr. His game has been trash since he left New York. Yeah, Tim Hardaway Jr. is trash. But hey, I don't feel sorry for anybody. Like, you got Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway Jr. starting for you. And the Detroit Pistons, to their credit, they're 2 games below 500. The Detroit Pistons have actually been playing pretty well in this game. Cade Cunningham with another double-double, right? You got to give it up to him there. But this is Chicago Bulls podcast, so we're not going to wax poetic about the Detroit Pistons. Plus, it's Detroit, right? Like, you can't say too much good about Detroit. That's just a personal thing. But it's Zach Levine's play today, and the fact that Zach Levine, KCoby White, Nikola Vucevic, all over 20 points in this game, all over 25 points, or 25 points or more in this game. And so when you get 79 points from your core 3 players, you better win that game, right? You better win that game. And that's what the Bulls did today. And they took care of business in a way that we haven't always seen the Chicago Bulls take care of business. So for that, I'm grateful. But hey, we're going to ask, is this a new fresh start for the Chicago Bulls after the comments from KCoby White after the game and stepping up as a leader? Can this be a new fresh start to finish the season for the Bulls? We'll talk about it after we get into this message from FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Again, I've been saying this for as long as FanDuel has been doing this. Being able to get all the information that you need to place an informed bet on the same page where you place your actual bets is a huge benefit. A huge benefit. It helps you get in bets quicker, it helps you make a more informed bet, and hopefully it makes you make a little bit more money. And FanDuel is helping you guys do that. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's if you win your first $5 bet. Don't be coming back to me saying, Haize, I placed a bet and I didn't get $150 like you said. It's if you win your first $5 bet. So you still got to place a smart bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Bulls fans, let's go ahead and get ready to wrap this show on up. And I want to finish this by asking, right? So after the last game, KCoby White and Billy Donovan were very vocal on the fact that the Bulls lacked effort. And while I'm very appreciative more so than anything that KCoby White was the one to call that out after the last game, because all we heard this offseason is that KCoby White is ready to step up into a leadership role for the Bulls. We've heard it. We keep hearing it. And, that is a leadership moment for your team. And the fact is, right, I'm not saying it's just because KCoby said something. The team responded in this game. So for a team that's still trying to find their voice, a team that's trying to find their leader, a team that's trying to find their edge, right? The fact that KCoby said something and Billy Donovan, I'm sure other players in the locker room said something as well, and they came back out and they changed some things. I think that's a big thing. Can this be a fresh start? I pose the question. I'm going to answer the question. It could be. Anything could be a fresh start, right? I still think that this team is still button mashing. I still think that that's this offense. It's out there running. It's trying to get in transition. It's trying to get up a lot of three-point shots. When the three-point shots go in, you're going to look really good, right? You're going to have some confidence. You're going to be able to get out in transition better. Players are going to cut to the rim more because there's going to be more spacing on the court. But I still think that this team still lacks consistent substance, right? This is a vibe team, right? It's a crash out and a positive crash out, meaning that you can either shoot yourself into games or you can shoot yourself completely out of games. And it's the variance of that is going to go night to night when it comes to the Chicago Bulls. There are going to be some days where the Bulls got it. There are going to be some days where the Bulls can't hit anything. It really comes down to this and depends on the fact of how much are the Bulls hitting the three-point shots, and how is that confidence helping filter into this? I don't think this is a fresh start. I'm not going to look at this win over the Detroit Pistons and all of a sudden say we're going to see a much better team and much better, more consistent effort. Now, if they do this a little bit more consistently, maybe that's what starts changing for this team, right? When you look at the Bulls opponents that we have on the dock for the rest of the week, right? We got Milwaukee on Wednesday. That's a winnable game. That is also on ESPN, which that can cause some own trauma for the Bulls, depending on how you look at that. Then when you look at Friday against Atlanta, that's at home. I think that's the first time we're going to see the City Edition jerseys as well. So shout out to that. Then you have a game at home against Memphis. We beat Memphis so far this year. Matter of fact, all three teams that we're facing for the rest of this week are all teams that we already have wins against. So if the Bulls can start cooking, especially when you got those two, the back-to-back on Friday and Saturday at home, if you can find some home cooking there, maybe, just maybe, then we'll start saying some things can turn around for the Chicago Bulls team. But I just think it's too uncertain right now to say that for sure, right? And so we'll see. We'll see how the Bulls fare over the rest of this week. I got some faith in him. You guys should have some faith in him too. But like I said, always believe the eye test, right? This team is who we thought they were for the most part, and they're probably going to continue to be who we think they are as well. But you guys can just always can sound off down below. You can follow us at Locked On Bulls. You can follow me personally at CEO Haize. You can also check us out, the daily newsletter that we have now. Go to lockedondaily.com to sign up for the Chicago Bulls daily newsletter that I drop every single morning. So make sure you guys stay in tune with us for that as well. But that's my time for today. Like I like to end everything on, man. Love you guys. Go Bulls. See red. We'll see you guys here on Wednesday, because this is Tuesday's episode, even though it's Monday night. I see you guys Wednesday at probably 9 a.m. for the live stream. We're moving it way earlier now. Love you guys. Go Bulls. Peace, y'all.